We're live.
Hey everybody, it's Amanda.
And Rick.
And it is time for our evening Bible study. I feel like I look cute tonight, which, at 1 a.m. doesn't usually happen. But hey, how are y'all doing? It's Bible study time. I didn't have any coffee. I didn't even have a nap. You know what it is, though? I'll tell you what it is. I know exactly what it is. I made pumpkin cinnamon rolls today from scratch. And I had 1.5. So I'm more sugar than usual. And I think that might be why I'm like hyped up at 1 o'clock in the morning. Because I don't normally eat sweet things like that. But, I couldn't resist. They were pumpkin cinnamon rolls. You know what I'm saying? So
we are on Genesis 40. Genesis chapter 40. Mm-hmm. There are 23 verses, I believe. 23 verses, Genesis 40. I actually don't think it'll take a full hour. I could be wrong, but I don't think so.
Well, whenever you say that, I think it's definitely going to be an hour.
Hope everybody's doing well.
He was not allowed to have the sugar. He did have a little taste of the things. But
everyone's saying it's blurry.
Is it blurry?
It doesn't look blurry on here.
I'm sorry if it is blurry. I noticed earlier that our internet was running really slow. And so I don't know what that is. It doesn't happen to, I don't know if the weather's impacting it or what.
It's strange because the screen looks fine. I'm not sure.
Yeah, everything is fine. I'm just sharing the link real fast and then I'll double check. Mm-hmm. So if you just give me 1 second.
Anyway, happy Sunday to some of you on our coast. What are we doing?
Sharing links. Mm.
Is it still blurry?
Okay. It says it's getting better.
Oh, that's good. Well, then I won't even check. I'll just hope that it gets better.
It looked fine on my phone, so I'm just going to assume that that's good. All right.
We are talking about Joseph.
Yep.
Again tonight. A story that happened to him while he was in prison. And it's pretty straightforward. I have a few things to apply it or talk about it at the end, but even that won't take too long. There's a part of this story, it kind of just ends, and then a part of this story of what happens tonight actually carries over to the next chapter. So it's like the story will continue, but we'll stop it at the 23rd verse tonight. Anytime you want to get going, I'm ready. I'm sipping my coffee.
All right. We are where we left off, I should say, is Joseph had gone to prison. Mm-hmm. And it said pretty much that he had kind of gotten in the same position that he'd gotten in when he was in Potiphar's house, in that he was favored and everything that he did went well. And so he was kind of in charge of the prison at this point. The guy who was in charge left Joseph in charge, and he had pretty much free reign. It's prison, but within the prison, he had as much freedom as he could possibly have. So verse 1 of Genesis 40 says, "And it came to pass after these things that the butler of the king of Egypt and his baker had offended their lord, the king of Egypt. And Pharaoh was wroth against 2 of his officers, against the chief of the butlers and against the chief of the bakers. And he put them in ward in the house of the captain of the guard into the prison, the place where Joseph was bound. And the captain of the guard charged Joseph with them, and he served them. And they continued a season in the ward, and And they dreamed a dream, both of them, each man his dream in one night, each man according to the interpretation of his dream, the butler and the baker of the king of Egypt, which were bound in the prison. And Joseph came into them in the morning and looked upon them, and behold, they were sad. And he asked Pharaoh's officers that were with him and the ward of his lord's house, saying, Wherefore look ye so sadly today? And they said unto him, We have dreamed a dream, and there is no interpreter of it. And Joseph said unto them, Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me them, I pray you. And the chief butler told his dream to Joseph, and said to him, In my dream, behold, a vine was before me. And in the vine were 3 branches, and it was as though it budded, and her blossoms shot forth, and the clusters thereof brought forth ripe grapes. And Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and I gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. And Joseph said unto him, This is the interpretation of it. The 3 branches are 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thine head and restore thee unto thy place, and thou shalt deliver Pharaoh's cup into his hand, after the former manner when thou wast his butler. But think on me when it shall be well with thee, and show kindness, I pray thee, unto me. Make mention of me unto Pharaoh, and bring me out of this house, for indeed I was stolen away out of the land of the Hebrews, and here also have I done nothing that they should put me into the dungeon. When the chief baker saw that the interpretation was good, he said unto Joseph, I also was in my dream, and behold, I had 3 white baskets on my head. And in the uppermost basket there was of all manner of bake meats for Pharaoh, and the birds did eat them out of the basket upon my head. And Joseph answered and said, This is the interpretation thereof. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thy head from off thee, and shall hang thee on a tree, and the birds shall eat thy flesh from off thee. And it came to pass the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, that he made a feast unto all his servants, and he lifted up the head of the chief butler and of the chief baker among his servants. And he restored the chief butler unto his butlership again, and he gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker as Joseph had interpreted them. Yet did not the chief butler remember Joseph, but forgat him. So I don't know if I would want to know. You know what I mean? If those were, if the options were to know that everything was going to be great or it was going to be really bad, I do not know if I would want to know that. But anyway, butler, baker, had some dreams. Joseph interpreted them. They came true. And then they forgot about Joseph. Well, the butler did. He was the only one left.
Mhm.
The end. That's my short version. It is only 20 verses, so you're right.
You throwing it on me?
Of course. You
Well,
should be prepared by now, man.
yeah. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, you read it. So Joseph's in the prison there, and he's even given some duties there in the prison. And the Pharaoh, he gets angry with his chief baker and his wine taster, really.
The butler.
Yeah. Yeah, but he did the cup and everything. So he's a wine taster essentially. And they're in prison as Joseph was, and that's up to verse 3. And then they have this dream. I like where it says in verse 8, do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me them, I pray you. Joseph understood there's a higher power. I think sometimes, not everybody, but sometimes there are some people who kind of get, I don't know, interested, maybe for amusement. Maybe they take it really seriously, dreams and what they mean and everything. Personally, people say you dream every night. I don't know. I never remember my dreams. I remember maybe 1 or 2 a year.
I dream a lot. He never does.
Like I said, some people say you dream every night, but I'm telling you flat out, I never remember them. And if I do, usually I don't know. My coffee in the morning is more interesting. But there are people who really they keep journals and they record them and everything. They're trying to figure out what they mean and everything. But even Joseph said the interpretations belong to God.
Well, I want to say this, though. I think that people do have dreams all the time, but most dreams probably don't mean anything. I do think, the reason why these guys were so stressed by these dreams where I think they realized there was something more to them than just being dreams. I mean, there must have been something very significant about it to make them like so upset that people would notice. I mean, most of the time when you have dreams, it's not like you said, your coffee's more interesting. So, but I really feel like if the Lord was trying to get a message to you through your dream, you'd know something, that there's something more to it than just this. I don't think the Lord is kind of secretive about things, I think he's purposeful in what he does.
But I mean, I know I've said things like this before, but it bears repeating if we have any new people listening, or maybe you didn't hear it the first time, because this is right. In the Old Testament, folks, people didn't have a completed Bible. Okay. When God spoke to people, sometimes like with Abraham and all, he actually talked to them, right? But you go down the line, and he talked to some people through their dreams. He went to Jacob in a dream. He gave Joseph the ability to interpret dreams. You get further through the Old Testament, he starts sending his prophets here and his prophets there. You got your Jeremiah, you got your Isaiah, even Jonah, and they preached God's message. The folks didn't have a completed Bible, but they preached, "Thus saith the Lord."
Eventually Christ, and then eventually you get the Holy Spirit. So at this point, we have the Bible.
Yeah.
And the Holy Spirit.
Yeah. So my point in saying all that is that you may say, well, did God operate different back then? Well, God doesn't change, but the channels in which he talked to man maybe were slightly different here and there. But like I said, he did talk to people a lot through their dreams and such. We do dream today, but I would never stand on a dream as this is, I know for sure God speaking to me. Could God talk to us through a dream? Sure. But I do know this: God has his word for us. And it is folly. It is not wise to put more credit in a dream than the Bible. Okay. And nothing, God's not going to contradict his word. Many times people will get an idea that contradicts the Bible, and they'll say, well, this is what God wants me to do, but the Bible is against it. Well, God doesn't contradict his word. The Bible's complete, and this is the mind of God that I hold here. So all I'm saying is this, is that, yes, we're reading a chapter tonight that has to do with dreams, but you don't have to jump up and down and start saying, well, I had a dream last night, and I ate a whole chicken. I don't know where that came from, but like, what does that mean? Well, I guess you like chicken. I don't know, but so you get what I'm saying, because there's always that one person who comes along and they really want to start analyzing said dreams, and I think there's more points to bring out of chapter 40 than the idea of dreams and such. Please. You busy? I'll continue.
Go ahead and continue.
So one night, so let's see, what's the first dream? They both had a dream. He interpreted the first one, and it was for the butler. He told him that his dream, he saw a vine. It had 3 branches. They began to bud. They began to blossom, that kind of thing. There were clusters of ripe grapes. And he was holding Pharaoh's wine cup in his hand. And he took the grapes. He squeezed the juice. He gave it to him to drink. And he interpreted the dream for him with the Lord's help. And the 3 branches meant 3 days. And within 3 days, Pharaoh was going to take him out of the prison and pretty much give him his old job back. And we see at the end of the chapter, that's exactly what happened. And that really excited the other guy, the baker. And he really wanted to know what his dream was about. But before I say that, let me say this. I want to point that out. in verse 14 and verse 15, because this will come into play tomorrow night also. But after he interpreted the dream of the butler, he said in verse 14 and 15, he more or less said, remember me. I helped you. You're going to get out of prison. You're going to get your old job back, butler. And when you get back and you start talking to Pharaoh, drop a word for, I've been in this prison for a long time now, and I haven't really done anything. So tell him about this kind of thing. And I wrote down in my Bible just to make sure, just so I make sure I could remember to say it. It is not wrong to make a request. Joseph was not complaining here. He was not whining about his circumstances. In fact,
no, but it was difficult, and there's no problem with.
True.
To get away from it.
And that is exactly the point that I'm making. Just because you're in a difficult situation and you make a request for something, don't think that means that you are not content. Sometimes I think we get a bad idea of what contentment means. Contentment means to be satisfied with where the Lord took you, but you can still make requests. You should pray about it. When you pray, praying is really requesting to God, and maybe the Lord will tell you no. Maybe the Lord will tell you yes, but not right now, kind of deal. But I mean, making a request, you should never feel bad about that. Because sometimes, I get like that. Sometimes, and maybe it's pride, I don't know. Sometimes I'll take everybody else's requests, but I don't want to voice my own. Because I think I should just be, satisfied with, how things are. And yes, you should be satisfied, but it's okay, like Joseph, to say, hey, this is wrong. We help me. And all he was doing was asking for help. And then that goes on to the next one. Do you have anything you want to say about the butler?
I mean, not really.
Okay.
Not really. Because, at this point, he's just interpreting. I think
That's all.
The main points of the passage aren't specific to the individual dreams and the individual interpretations.
Mm-hmm.
The main points of the passage are Joseph's, how the Lord is, again, he's with everyone.
Yep.
And he's just put all these puzzle pieces, in exactly the right order, given Joseph a place of honor, put exactly the right people in the exact same place that Joseph is to make this accessible to Joseph eventually. And then he has this opportunity just by these dreams. Mm-hmm. Not only does he have help or give some wisdom to these men who are facing an uncertain future, but he also uses this situation to, in the future, you can see God's foresight here, because it's going to be a while between this actual event and the time that the Lord uses it to change Joseph's life again. Mm-hmm. So, and Joseph is thinking the way to get out of this is to, get some friends and maybe try to let somebody know that I'm in here, wrongly accused. He doesn't realize the Lord's already got a plan to get him out, but in a way better way than Joseph would have ever imagined. Yeah. So the individual dreams and interpretations, to me, they're just part of the story, but they're not what's really going on. What's really going on is behind all of that.
I agree with all that. So, but just to go through the verses, because it is a Bible study. So the chief baker saw the first dream, turned out good for the butler.
So the baker was like, "Ooh."
Yep. Let me tell you more. So he talks about there's 3 baskets, and they have baked goods, pastries and such, for the Pharaoh. But birds came and ate. So Joseph interprets the dream. Again, the 3 baskets mean 3 days, and like my wife said at the beginning. You think, well, maybe tell me, curiosity, but you know what? Curiosity killed the cat. Yeah. This was not a good one. 3 days from now, Pharaoh is going to, you're going to be hanged, execution.
I mean, he just comes straight out with it. Like, he doesn't even try to be gentle, at least from what this says. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
and keep in mind, the prison here is in Potiphar's, like, I don't know how you would say, castle, I guess. And remember, Potiphar was the chief executioner. Okay, kind of deal. Well, it does say that. Do I need to find the verse?
Well, I remember being the captain of the guard.
You threw me off.
He was an officer of the Pharaoh, captain of the guard.
Let me look for it in a little bit, and I'll let you know.
Okay.
I don't want to get off subject.
Okay.
So he said he was going to impale him. He was going to kill him, and then in 3 days from there, Pharaoh had a birthday. She said it. She read it, and the butler was restored, got his job back, and then at that same moment, just like the dream was interpreted, the poor old baker, I don't know what he did, but it really angered the Pharaoh. He hung him. He had him hung. So, and that was that. But then it ends. But they hanged the chief baker as Joseph had interpreted to them. And then verse 23 is really the telltale thing that goes into the next chapter, which this also comes up again. But several years go by. Yet did not the chief butler, the one that he helped, that chief butler, did not the chief butler remember Joseph, but forgot him. Forgot all about him. Forgot all about the fella who helped him, who explained the dream, and still forgot all about it.
I'm not gonna go too far ahead, but I'll just tell you the beginning of the next verse says, and it came to pass at the end of 2 full years that Pharaoh
dreamed.
Pharaoh dreamed.
But understand those 2 full years that he forgot what Joseph did for him. Joseph's sitting there in prison.
Yeah, but I'm only bringing that up because, again, my whole point in all of this chapter is that the Lord was working.
Mm-hmm.
Joseph had no idea, had no clue what the Lord wanted to do with him. None. And he is languishing, he feels, in prison, spending his youth in there, right? Falsely accused. And I'm sure that he felt forgotten. Obviously, the butler forgot him.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, to some degree, he must have felt forgotten by God a little bit. But yet God clearly had not forgotten him because he had orchestrated this at this time when he's doing the dream interpretations. But it's going to be 2 full years before the Lord is actually going to use this circumstance to bring Joseph to a place where he can do a mighty work. So I guess my main point in all this is just that, and I'm sure you have lots of points that you want to say. But my main point is just that, again, and similar to what I said yesterday, at the times when it looks the bleakest, the Lord knows what's going on. And you just don't know how he's going to use whatever circumstances that you're in to do something that's amazing, that's bigger than you could ever imagine. There's so many, I'm in our life. I mean, there's so many times that I have been frustrated with things, but like one of the things that I think of in specifically is that there was a time where we could barely get by and barely feed ourselves. And we've talked about it many times on our other YouTube channel. Like, we barely had enough money to scrape by. And it felt like, I mean, for a long time, it was week to week to week to week, just barely being able to feed us, feed the kids, feed the family, paying bills, doing all those things. And at the time, it just was so stressful, and it felt like it was never going to end, right? It felt like you could never get a breath. But the Lord used that time to now we're able to share that with other people. And not only do we get to help other people who are struggling financially to be able to make the most of what they have, the whole Frugal Family Food Group is helping families eat well on a budget. right? So we get to help people do that.
Mhm.
But also it's able to help us just by sharing that and doing what we do. The Lord's able to use that to give us additional income so that we've been able to increase our grocery budget. I mean, but we would have never thought it at the time, and through all of that, we've even been able to have this ministry. So who knew years ago we were broke and couldn't feed our family? The Lord had this broad vision that was way greater than anything we could have imagined. And I think anyone can look at their life and look at whatever time was one of the most challenging times of your life and see, given enough time, you might still be close to a challenging time, but given enough time, you might be able to see how the Lord has used that to bring you to something amazing that you would have never imagined. But he does that. He still does that because he is so still actively involved in our lives.
More or less what you said, but I'm thinking of Joseph.
I'm gonna tissue.
Go ahead. Joseph, the younger brother, just a young guy. Remember when we first read about Joseph or started talking about him a few chapters ago? He was what? He was 17, just a young man. Okay, and his dad favored him. That's not Joseph's fault, but his dad favored him, and his brothers didn't like him. I mean, so right off the bat, you remember we say, I mean, you began to feel for the guy. And okay, his dad loved him and gave him this coat. They throw him in the pit. They're talking about killing him or this, that, or the other, and then not as bad as being killed, but still pretty bad. They sold him. Okay, like he was something to be sold, that kind of thing. And then they dip his coat in blood or whatever. They killed an animal, and they showed it to the dad and made the dad think that he's dead. So the dad thinks he's gone. The one brother also does, Reuben, and then the other brothers they're living this lie. And then Joseph,
Well, can I pause you right there? Because I was just talking about how the Lord knew when he was doing all these dreams. The Lord knew even back then.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was terrible that Joseph was sold, but Joseph says later that they meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. So way back when he was 17, it's been so many years that have passed, and it still hasn't come to fruition what the Lord was going to do. But even way back then, he had a plan.
So he's sold, and he's put in Potiphar's house.
Mm-hmm.
And then the whole thing that we read last night about his wife, Potiphar's wife, and she lied on him, and now he finds himself in prison. So he's gone from a pit to slavery, and now he's in a prison. And it just seems like it keeps getting worse for the fellow. But the Lord's with him the whole time. And the Lord had a plan for him the entire time. And, later on in Genesis, right at the end, we're going to see how the Lord used him big time. Okay. And the brothers acknowledge, hey, that Joseph was somebody that they shouldn't have, just tossed away like it was nothing, that they needed him. But anyway, so we're here and he's in prison and the Lord uses him here. Maybe in a small way, we think it's small, possibly. It's just he used him to interpret some dreams or so. But it's definitely something that the Lord was using as a means of really even getting Joseph out of the prison, because we'll read about that tomorrow. But definitely used him in prison. And I'll tell you, just the testimony of the man Joseph, who lasted in prison for so long and dealt with all these hard setbacks, that has preached. Many messages have been preached on Joseph and just what he dealt with, and he still showed grace. Mm-hmm. You don't read here that he's got a bitter spirit. You don't read here that he's shaking his fist and he's really, he's just Joseph. He makes a request to get out of prison, but he's not like falling apart, and he's also not bitter and angry at God. He got a good testimony still. And the Lord used him in this situation, interpreting these dreams in prison. And I just wanted to make a point of saying that, if the Lord can use a man in prison, who seems like he's forgotten about, he can certainly use any one of us. Sometimes, I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel like the Lord just can't use me. I do. I sometimes I think, the needs of the day are so great. And there are a lot of people who have a bigger voice, more education, more this, more that. And you start to think, Lord, use them. But, the Lord wants to use us, each and every one of us. The only key is, number one, you have to be available. You have to say, like Isaiah, Lord, here I am, send me, kind of deal. Use me, Lord. And I'll tell you what, if that's your prayer, if you honestly want the Lord to use you, he will. So you just have to make yourself available. Joseph, the poor guy's in prison. He's definitely available. He's not going anywhere. But the idea is that you just need to make yourself available. We made ourselves available. And like my wife mentioned, the Lord gave us this online ministry. And it has reached several people. It seems like dozens and dozens of people. We were doing the fundamental home. We're doing the Beals, and that's its own genre, I guess. But we really wanted to do a ministry channel, and we started this, and and it has been growing pretty steady. And I will say this just so you can get some perspective on it, how the Lord is using it. It's a ministry channel. I don't know if you surf around YouTube or not. Ministry channels don't really grow all the time that steady like. Some of the bigger ones maybe, but not huge. This channel,
we're just two people, like just a couple in our house doing a Bible study, from God's word. We don't have like a whole corporate entity behind us of any kind. So it's definitely the Lord. Without question.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm agreeing.
And the Lord's using the channel, and he's using us too through the channel. And my whole point is that God wants to use us all for different jobs, different roles, different everything. I'm not sure. I don't know what the Lord wants to do with you. But I know for a fact if you're here and you're saved, the Lord wants to do something with you in his work. All you need to do is make yourself available and say, Lord, here I am. You know what I know. You know what my talents are. You know what my gifts are. You gave them to me. Whatever use you can get out of me, just get it out of me. And really make that your prayer, and the Lord will use you. Okay. You have anything?
Shania and Ellis that they've been watching for a few years now based off of frugal cooking video.
Yeah.
Isn't it amazing how the Lord brings people together? And we're all of us different places, Florida, Wisconsin, Canada, Georgia, everybody's in all these different places. Beck, she comes on, she's in Australia. She was here last night.
Mm-hmm.
There's Layla's in Norway. There's all kinds of different folks in all kinds of different places. And it's just so amazing that the Lord has brought us all together here on this one place. And I feel like, even years ago when we had no money for food, the Lord knew he was going to bring us all together here now.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's the Lord still does that. I guess the point is, when you read about Joseph, it seems like a Bible story. It might seem far away from your real life, but he's still doing the same thing now. And that's just what he's done in our life. But I know he's doing it in y'all's life too. Shauna mentioned the COVID. She's like, maybe the Lord's going to use COVID. And I have no doubt that all of this 2020 mess It's just too crazy. It's just too out there. It's stuff nobody would have predicted. I feel like that it can't be anything but the Lord having a plan, and he's going to use all of this for our good. We said that when we started doing these nightly Bible studies at the beginning of the COVID thing, that was like the main thing that we were trying to tell people at the time, that, you know, the Lord, this seems crazy, but and there was, I feel very confident that there might have been those behind the scenes that meant it for evil, but I know that God means it for our good. And we might not see it right away. We might not see the fruit of it for a few years, but I have no doubt that the Lord has a good purpose in mind.
I don't want to give anything away, but essentially what's getting ready to happen is Pharaoh's going to have a dream. We'll talk about that probably tomorrow night. And he's going to want that dream interpreted. And the same fella who just forgot about Joseph interpreting his dream is going to, a couple years later, remember, oh yeah, there's this guy who's pretty good at interpreting dreams, you know, that kind of thing. And then Joseph is going to be sprung, we could say. But I'm going to say this. With that thought in mind, you know, 2020 and the whole, you know, drama and everything that's been going on this year, in a way, in a way, not the same thing, but in a way, it's been kind of like being in prison to a point. I mean, a lot of freedoms and a lot of things that we took for granted before, we've been limited. Okay, not totally in prison. I'm not going to say that, but we've been definitely limited this year. And I'm going to say this is that just like in the Bible that we're going to read about tomorrow, that hey, Pharaoh says, hey, okay, I want to talk to this guy who can interpret dreams and kind of thing. You know, there may be people this year questioning life, looking for a purpose in life, thinking there's got to be more to life than politics and all the stuff that's going on and everything. There's got to be more purpose to life than what we're seeing in 2020. And they may say, not like, will you interpret life for me? But they may say, what is the meaning of life? Can you give me some help? Can you give me some hope? And someone may say, hey, you should ask my friend so and so. He or she's a Christian. You know, they seem to be joyful, that person. They seem to be, you know, there's something different about them. Why don't you talk to them? They may give you some help. And they'll say, okay, Christian, what is the purpose of life? I've been very depressed this year, 2020 and all. What is the purpose? And then you'll say, hey, let me tell you about Jesus, you know, and you can preach to them or teach them or, you know, Jesus, who Jesus is, what he did for them, that he loves them, that he wants to save them, that he wants to have them a member of his family, and that he will give them a new heart, a new focus, a new everything. And I mean, isn't that good? And folks, there are a lot of people, I think, right now looking for an interpretation of life or saying, what is the purpose of life? And they're going to look for somebody that has the answers. And the news doesn't have the answers. And your neighbor down the street who just watches the news and has all these opinions and everything, they don't have the answer either. The answers come out of God's book, okay? And you're studying God's book each and every night. Believe it or not, it's getting up here, it's getting in here, and you have some answers now. And somebody may come across your path and say, can you help me out? Give me some purpose, give me some hope. And folks, in that moment, you know, the Lord, fill my mouth, you know, and share with them Jesus saves, that kind of thing. So,
like I said, the virus has brought people together, and I definitely think for the purpose of being able to share the good news.
I agree with that.
Junior said that it's about more financial education, opportunities for people. I think it definitely is giving people a shot of wisdom, which they need. Mm-hmm. I mean, honestly, I mean, people have gotten so far from God. It's almost become more abundantly clear with all of this, because we are kind of shut in and forced to deal with some things, you know. It's like a lot of people started homeschooling this year. And I know because we had our kids in public and private school and then brought them home to homeschool. And I know when you bring your kids home to homeschool, all of a sudden you realize how bad they are because when they're in school all day and the teacher deals with them, you know what I mean? It's like you're like, I don't see what the problem is. Why can't they get a hold of them? But then when you got them home all day long, it's like, hold up. We got to get some things straight. I thought we had some things under control and you don't. So it's kind of like that in a broader sense. Like, I think that we've just kind of been going along with life and things have been kind of easy. Now we're all forced to deal with some things that have been kind of lingering. And so it's a little uncomfortable, but at the same time, it's going to work out. It's going to come together. It's purposeful. It needs to happen and it's good. So
It's got two more points, and I don't really have a lot to say with each one. Just give you two thoughts. And I'm thinking about Joseph. Joseph, poor guy, in prison. After the butler leaves, he's still got to wait 2 years, thereabouts. Okay, in prison, totally forgotten. Okay, and I wrote down that what, God can help you. God can help you at any point. He can help you wait to get to the next place that he has for you. Joseph needed to learn how to wait. I don't know. A lot of us, me, myself included, we don't have a lot of patience. I say I do until I have to have it, and then I don't. Can you imagine sitting at home or sitting in a prison for, he'd already been in prison, but from the time the guy left to the time, we get to tomorrow night's chapter, 2 years. That's a lot of waiting. Now, God was with him the whole time. And you're going to find tomorrow night that Joseph didn't go bonkers. He was still Joseph. Well, how do you stay Joseph after all that waiting? How do you keep your right mind after all that time, knowing that you didn't even do anything to be put into prison in the first place? You're totally an innocent man sitting there, Obviously, it's obvious. The Lord was helping. The Lord will help you get to the next step. But if that next step takes a while, he will help you wait. The idea of waiting on God, waiting for his timing, waiting for him to say, it's time. And
there were so many other big things at play here because it wasn't really just about Joseph. He was going to use Joseph to make sure an entire nation and nations connected to them didn't starve to death.
Mm-hmm.
And so
coming up.
Joseph feels like he's languishing in prison.
He's got a big job for Joseph, if you're new to Genesis and all.
But the Lord is not rushing it because it's not all about Joseph.
Mm-hmm.
That the Lord is making sure that people have enough, food. It's not the whole purpose, because really the whole purpose is to glorify God ultimately. But he's going to use this circumstance of the famine. And so leading up to the famine, there has to be enough food for them to grow and prepare and put away so that they can get through the famine, which doesn't just, anybody who's grown a garden, if you're going to have enough for multiple years, it doesn't, you got to save the seed from the year before. You got to have a big crop. There were things that the Lord was putting in place behind the scenes. That's just a small example. I'm sure it's way more than that. Mm-hmm. Joseph was just one piece of it, one person involved in the entire. I'm sure there's so many other things that the Lord put into play to make all of this happen in exactly the right way. Mm-hmm. Yet Joseph felt, it was sitting in prison for 2 years. It probably felt forever. But at the same time, the Lord had so many things he was working out so that it was just the right time and just the right circumstances to make sure that everyone benefited from it. So if you're waiting for something, I know some of you guys are waiting for different things, especially during this COVID situation, but even in your life in general, just think about all of the things that the Lord is putting into place so that you have exactly the right thing that you need to do whatever it is his plan is for your life. He's putting it on. And so when you think about it that way, it's easier to wait. I want to say, I'm sorry, I did have a lot of sugar. I know some of you guys are single. I want to say too that there was this couple that I knew, and they had to wait 4 to 5 years before they could get married. They were committed to waiting until they got married, but there were different reasons why there was a long wait. So they started dating, and then they were together all these years, and they're still not married, but they still have another year or so till they could get married, and they're still talking about it. And it's amazing that they've been together such a long time, faithful and all that. But anyway, so that couple, the brother of the guy in that couple, he is also single. Mm-hmm. And doesn't like being single. He's sad, right? And I told him, I was like, the thing is, your brother is the kind of guy that can be with someone for 4 years plus and wait patiently. You're not that kind of guy. He's not the kind of guy that could wait patiently. I said, So just think if you had to wait 4 years, right? Mm-hmm. And the Lord knows you can't wait patiently. So he's not going to show you that young lady till about a year before. You got another 3 years you got to be single until that woman arrives in your life, just for example, you know what I mean? But when she comes, you're going to know it's the right one. You're not going to have very long to wait. You'll be able to get married. Things will all be in place. It'll be great. So if you knew that was going to be the case, then you could patiently wait those 3 years. Probably not, though, because he'd probably sit around, stressing out about it, But the point is that the Lord knows. He knows exactly the right thing that you need for you. Mm-hmm. And so if you look at it from that perspective, and you just think about how he really does have everything in place. If you are in a place of, say, singleness, but it's not just singleness. I think that goes for a lot of things. For a long time, Rick and I waited for a house. We've talked about that. We waited to buy a house. And at the right time, the Lord gave us one. And at the time, it seemed like it was way bigger than what we needed. We didn't know Marquise was coming in our life. We didn't know a lot of things that were happening, but the Lord, it's what he gave us. Mm-hmm. And we even prayed it when we got it. We were like, Lord, it's yours. We didn't know we were going to have 25 cats. But anyway, so the idea is that, the Lord has a plan. Mm-hmm. He has timing. Sorry to interrupt you. Mm-hmm. You got at least one more point.
I have one more for you to interrupt.
We do. We just had 10 kittens. They're not in our house.
No.
They're like wild cats that we feed, but there's just 10 more new kittens.
But you know the rule. When you feed a stray, it becomes yours. And we have several generations of cats.
Just 1 year ago, we had one outdoor and one indoor.
Yeah. Those of you that followed the Beals or the Fundamental Home, my wife, not this year because of COVID, but last October, was it October? You went to Homesteaders?
Yeah.
It was October. So last October, she went to Homesteaders of America, mm-hmm. and we only had one porch cat. There was only one cat that we were feeding outside. Now there's 25. So they multiply, folks.
Well, we keep trying to get rid of the kittens, but Brianna won't let us. That's a whole nother story. But this new batch of kittens, I told her, some of them have got to be adopted out because...
I'll be honest with you. I was the first one to hate cats. I didn't want cats. I didn't like cats. But they've grown on me over the years, and I actually like them. I'll get home from work at night, and they meet me like dogs. You know how a dog will run up to you? The cats run up to me. As soon as I get out of the van and my feet hit the sidewalk, they're all over me. What is it? Oh, I guess she was going to get one. Anyway, they've grown on me. I have to say that they've grown on me. I don't know. She went outside. I'll give you the last point, and we'll be done. All good? Okay. You're scaring everyone.
It's just a possum.
You didn't bring the possum in, did you?
No. Who could say no to this face? Look at him. You say hi? Isn't he sweet?
That's funny.
That's one of the babies.
Does this one have a name?
This is Gravity.
Gravity. Don't drop Gravity.
Oh.
25.
I'm gonna put him back in the bucket. But he's such a sweetie. I'm sorry, go ahead with your point. I just had to hold a kitten. That's why we can't get rid of them, because they're so cute. Brianna had to come look. You want to go put him out?
I hope you're cat people. So I've adopted. We adopt these cats in our front porch. We call it Cat Town, and we always make it up for the winter and everything. So they're all warm and everything, and sheltered if it's raining or such. And it's a big operation. I believe my wife's the mayor of Cat Town.
Well, we do live near the woods. Jorge said they take care of the rats. We live in the woods, and we have no snakes. We have no mice.
I'll be honest with you.
We have nothing.
Oh, we're getting off the subject of the Bible study, but let me say something. We have a neighbor who, she's not a cat person. She's actually, if you can believe it, she's older lady, scared to death of cats.
Scared.
She thinks they're going to hurt her. They're not going to hurt her,
Mm-hmm.
but she's scared to death of them, and they'd rather have dogs. But their dogs don't really do anything productive to help. They lay in the road. They're just, you know what I mean. But the cats,
She's got snakes in her yard.
yeah. But the cats, they're helpful. I feed them, and they appreciate it by keeping all the pests away.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've lived in this house for 5-6 years. We've had almost no trouble at all. The cats take care of everything.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you the last point because we got way
I
off.
told you it was going to be an hour.
What'd I say? So God can use a man in prison, you know, he can use you in our 2020 drama prison. Okay. You're not so low. You're not so, off the radar that God doesn't know where you are and he can't use you in a great way. You just have to make yourself available. And folks, sometimes we need to wait on God. And waiting on God in our flesh can be hard, but God can give us the patience so we can wait until it's God's right timing. And I give you the last one. This old butler, I mean, I was on his side, people. He was finding his freedom. He was getting his job back. I mean, that's a great story. You can make a movie off of that. You're in prison. You get out but you pull you up by your bootstraps and you get your old job back, kind of deal. That's all like a Rocky moment, right? But then he just does something that just a head scratcher. You can almost feel Joseph's hope all around this guy. Drop a good word for me. All right, buddy. Remember me. And you can almost hear him say, yeah, I remember you. I know, I remember you. And then that last verse, that's a punch in the gut. Forgot him is what it says. And I'm just like, really? Are you that forgetful? Kind of deal. And my point is that man may forget you, but God doesn't forget. God will never forget you. Even if everybody that you went to school with, your neighbors, your coworkers, if you may feel like, hey, I'm on the bottom, and I'm working hard, but I feel like nobody pays attention. Nobody sees what I do. Nobody understands that I really care and I want to do a good job. Listen, folks, God sees you. Many of us, I think, and it goes right along with the 2020 drama of all this quarantine and safe at home and everything. I think the loneliness has been extreme this year. You know, people that are kind of like to keep to themselves, oh, they probably been loving it. But a lot of these outgoing folks who like to be around people and talk and be sociable and all, they probably, the lonely factor is probably at an all-time high this year. You know, and people may say, hey, it feels like the world's forgotten me. I just want to give you some assurance tonight, based on God's word, that God never forgets us. He thinks of you all the time. Think of this: you are ever present on God's mind. We have a verse in the Bible that God says, "I will never leave thee nor forsake thee." We always talk about God, being a promise keeper, making these promises. Well, that's a promise. God's promise that He'll never leave us, He'll never forsake us. And understand this: if God forgot you for one single second, just one second, you were off His mind, then He forsook you. He forgot all about you. He left you. He abandoned ship. Okay, if He forgot you for just one single second, He'd be a liar. He'd cease to be God. He wouldn't be God. Okay, understand how amazing and just almighty God is, that He can have you on His mind 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for always and always and always. And at the same time, He's got everyone else on His mind equally. That's how great God is. I mean, we can't even figure that out, that God can think of me all day long. And even though I'm not with my wife because I'm at work, He's thinking of her all day long, equally. And He's thinking of you. And He's thinking of you. And He's thinking of you. And you're ever present on His mind. This world forgets. It does. You know why? Because this world is just self-centered. Sometimes we think, man, everybody's thinking bad of me. They're probably not, because this world is so self-centered that people only think of themselves for the most part. And it may really bring a lot of loneliness, and say, everyone has forgotten me. Even if that's true, it's probably not, but even if it's true, God will never forget you. God is interested in you. God has a plan and a purpose for you. There's a reason that you're here. And God's thinking of you right now, and He wants you to find His will and fulfill the purpose that He put you here for. You understand? Nobody's here just by coincidence. Nobody's here just because God was bored and said, I think I'll make an Amanda. That's not how God operates. He says, I have a plan, I have a purpose, I have a job, and I need a soldier. I'm going to make Amanda. I'm going to make a Jorge. I'm going to make, whoever, Melissa. They're my soldier, and this is a mission that only they can do. Okay. Joseph had a mission that only he could do. Moses had a mission only he could do. Noah had a mission that only he could do. And He thinks of us, and He's preparing us for that mission each and every day. And just, that's an amen. Just trust God, wait on God for His timing. And when He opens that door wide and He says, it's now, soldier, you step forth. And whatever the mission is, maybe it's telling somebody the gospel. Maybe it's encouraging a Christian who's kind of down. Maybe it's going into this world that is really filled with a lot of hatred and bitterness, especially nowadays, and giving them something totally different. Where there's darkness, give them light. Where there's hatred, show them God's love, kind of thing. That's a mission. Just showing God's love. That's a big mission. Okay, so it's something to think about. Don't sit there tonight and say, I have no purpose. You in and of yourself may have no purpose, but that doesn't mean that God doesn't have a purpose for you, and that's your purpose. So stop looking within for a purpose and start looking up and saying, God, what is my purpose? Okay? Because he's the one that's going to give it to you. So think of that. Think of that.
An
I'm done.
hour and 4 seconds.
I'm done with an hour.
I knew it was going to be an hour.
It was an hour because you brought in the cat and you wrestled the possum. Yes, we get possums on the
Did not
porch.
wrestle a possum.
Yeah, I heard something. Oh man, I don't like wooded creatures. You know what I mean? All the possums and all the things. I don't like that. But we do live next to the woods and everything, and you know, if you put cat food out for stray cats, other things are going to think it's for them. So we sometimes, you know, have to deal with the possums and the skunks and my favorite, the raccoons. You know, you can chase a skunk.
If y'all have just started watching us and didn't watch our other live events, then you don't know
Oh, you're gonna make it long.
about Rick and the skunk and the duck call.
Duck call. Just let that be a mystery.
I know Shania knows.
Just let it be a mystery.
Hello, were you guys around when that happened?
I don't hunt, but my wife, to be funny, for I don't know what reason, but to be humorous, one time she was at a flea market, a thrift store or something, and bought me a duck call, one of those Duck Dynasty duck calls, like an actual one. I don't hunt, but I thought it was funny, and I kept the thing. I never did anything with it. I don't hunt.
No, but you would scare animals off the porch with
Well,
it.
see, that's the thing.
But one time there was a skunk
Yeah.
that came on the porch. And he decided that the smart way to try to scare a skunk was with the duck call.
I got desperate.
Were we actually on the live event when you did that?
No, we've just told it several times.
Oh my!
Now I was in here by myself, and I turned the light on the porch on and off, and it didn't work. I banged on the door, it didn't work. The thing is on the porch, and I just wanted away. You know, I don't know. I don't know when a skunk will do its thing. You know, I didn't know if it was like a snow globe. You shake it up and see something, but I just thought the quicker to get it off the porch, the better. Well, anyway, it hit my mind the duck call, and I thought, you know, I don't know, it sounds smart. So I went and got the thing, and I had to figure out how to use it because I never actually tried it. But I cracked the door like that far because I wasn't going to go all the way out. I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know if it was going to scare him or if he was going to like it. You know, I didn't want to get sprayed. So I as loud as I could, you know, and I guarantee you the thing probably thought it was like a 6-foot duck living in that house.
I think the Lord really took care of us.
I tell you, I don't know if you have ever driven fast in a car and you went by the hydroplane, you know, whatever. That skunk flew off that porch. Like there was that parkour or whatever, you know what I mean? That skunk was agile. You know, he boom, 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 gone. That's what you do if you have skunk problems, folks. No. Get yourself an assortment of duck calls.
Do not take that advice.
I guarantee he thought it was a 6-foot duck in that house. I had some pipes that night. The adrenaline was going. I didn't give him one of these wussy weren't, you know. I really got into that thing. That duck was 6 feet tall and had muscle. You know, that skunk was gone. Bible study's over if you're curious, folks.
You haven't prayed yet.
That had nothing to do with Joseph.
Nothing at all.
He didn't have a duck call. Lord, thank you for tonight. And just, Lord, we talked about having patience. Lord, thank you for the patience that you give us. Help us, Lord, to really be content as we wait on your will for our life. But Lord, when the door is open wide and we know what you want us to do, I pray that we will be a committed people, a faithful people, and I pray that we will follow you with total obedience. And Lord, I pray that you'll help us to love you more and serve you in a greater way. Thank you for the privilege of being your servants. In Christ's name, amen. Duck calls. Duck calls.
Y'all have a wonderful night. Come back tomorrow. We'll hear more about what happens.
Yes,
with Joseph.
and I've already talked about it. The chapter tonight, if you think it was like a cliffhanger, well, it continues over till tomorrow night, and this story continues. Part 2. Bye.
See you guys tomorrow.
Rest up. Good night. Good night. Good night. Thank you all.